short background and longer questions. A week ago, I made the decision that I have postponed making for a couple of years that is connected to my family life. All these years, I was waiting for clarity, some insights, revelation. But the decision I have made came suddenly, almost abruptly, with no prior thinking. So my questions are these. First set of questions. All there is Shiva. So do we only have a sense that we make decisions, but in reality, we do not? In brackets, Swami Lakshmanju made a difference between action performed by an individual soul and act, will of God. But can such kind of differentiation only seen by self-realized human beings? Yet we make decisions every day. Is it possible to at least sense the difference? Okay, let's continue with the questions from this lady so that maybe we can give it an overview. Do our actions in different states of consciousness after Kundalini awakening become more aligned with universal laws and with the essence of who we truly are? Is the Taoist concept of Wu Wei, non-doing, principle of conduct only for accomplished human beings? Or is it total surrender to the will of Shiva, or both, or something else altogether? Is it possible to live the highest dharmic life at all without opening our hearts fully for truth and love? Well, the last question is very easy to answer. No, it's not possible to live the highest dharmic life unless our heart is fully opened for truth and love, because these are interchangeable realities. Truth, love, beauty can be spoken of interchangeably. So unless our heart is truly opened in a sense that it then becomes a self-revealing power or self-revealing powers of what we truly are, then how can we speak of living highest dharmic life if that's what the highest dharmic life represents, is to live it from the place where that is fully expressed? So that part is rather simple. With regard to these actions, individual versus actions that are guided by the hand of God, so to speak, because I can see that underlying here, who makes these decisions, and you gave in your background is how it took you 2 years, and then suddenly the decision was made on a spur of the moment. So what decisions do we make on our own, and what decisions are being made on our behalf? This is kind of connects us to what we spoke a little bit earlier today with regard to that, how there are different views and perspectives in terms of what constitutes this individual. There are some allowances given in certain traditions that individual is divine, the soul is divine, but it is still not the full expression of the absolute. It's only, let's say, a certain quality, a certain degree, a certain kind of way that somehow that becomes possible for this individual to have then a connection, which is that then a responsibility of that individual to reestablish that connection to the source. This is also a formidable topic of many non-dual teachings, as well as religious truths. Like in Islam, for example, this is very much, it's a monoistic religion, but it is a responsibility of a seeker to return to the glory and to the light of God. It is a responsibility. And at the same time, with the axioms being expressed so clearly, there are these helpful also analogies given immediately that the God draws those he loves most closer to him. So it's kind of like, I don't know, I forgot whether this is from the Hadith or is this is a part of the Quran. I'm not a scholar on the topic, but this kind of goes here. You see, there's this connection. On one hand, it's a one-way responsibility. Responsibility is squarely on us to find way to go, to align to the light. And then on the other hand, that there is this God draws closer to him those he loves. So it's a kind of already, this is not just one-way affair. So we are not just here dwelling in the darkness, as it were, with the Supreme completely oblivious to what we are, who we are. And then there are other perspectives that, in addition, marrying these two, that the grace itself is won by those who are open their heart for that grace to enter. So you see, you need to make out of all these various, perhaps at times differently sounding truths, what will make most sense for you now. It's no point for me to tell you, from non-dual perspective, from the Advaita perspective, there is this absolutism. There's no you, no me. There's only Shiva. There's nobody thinks here. Everything is thought for you. Everything is decided for you. How you live your life, what you eat, whom you marry, whom you divorce, whom you bear as children, whether they stay, whether they go, whether they marry in turn, where you will live, how you will live, all decided, nothing you can do about it. Yes, there is this perspective, and there is a lot of truth to that. And yet, I want to bring to our attention here that what is a common sense and applicability of spiritual truth to how we live life. Otherwise, we might end up violating the very premises of that supreme will that is granted to us. So the will is the most precious asset we have. Let me repeat myself and maybe reiterate this. It's very, very important. Tantrically speaking, you remember, right? This, if you might have come across this as reading on Tantra or taking any courses or reading on your own, that Tantra deals with this concept of the Shiva as the absolute, and that absolute is blissful by nature. So this Shiva, right? This Shiva Ananda Iksha Jnana Kriya. So this absolute swelled with bliss, with pure delight of its own, has the will, knowledge, and action. And these are the 5 primary phases and 5 primary forces that are in operation all the time. And particularly the 3, the will, knowledge, and action. It begins with the will. Everything that we do, which inevitably will translate into action, begins at the level of the will. Remember that English saying, when there is a will, there is a way. Let's not give it up too prematurely. Assigning everything to the absolute does not somehow obliterates the right and the need for us to act as responsible beings here. This, I feel, is an important message of adjustment that needs to be brought from time to time. As we also internally, in a very intimate manner, truly understand that everything is guided by the divine will only. And yet, it is not granted that we are living the divine will. You see, this is why I don't want mix apples and pears and bring this highest teaching into the valley of life, and somehow we begin to exchange it and make and turn it into fool's gold. You see, one thing is knowing in your heart that everything is predetermined by the supreme authority, and another is to still act when someone in need needs your attention, needs your help, needs your intervention, when something needs to be said rather than keeping it quiet, when it is better to keep quiet rather than blurring around all the time, when, yes, as you have said here rightly, we constantly make decisions on a daily basis. So let us be very, very also down to earth and practical with regard to that. When it comes to the existential state of affairs, when it comes to the essence of who we are, what we are, why we're here, yes, let's delegate everything to one and the only, and let be the willing instruments, and let us, as it were, then say, let thy will be done. But in the meantime, let us be also active and proactive and do what needs to be done, simply because this is part and parcel of being human, you see? And that's not at all promulgating or prolonging ignorance. It's living life from the level of respective laws that are operable at the respective level of creation. So there is an absolute will, but there are also what I have just pointed out and brought this as a simple reminder that yes, let thy will be done, but whatever is required from me, whatever I have to be in charge of, let that not be somehow brushed asunder, and I'm here to rise to the occasion, and I'm here and I can carry my load. I can keep my stick to help to carry that mountain Vrindavan, to help Krishna to carry the burden. I do my little thing here, okay, and I sleep well. So ponder on that, see what it leaves you with. But do not somehow waste time on this. Whom does it belong to? Does it have to be awakened or accomplished? No. Just know that individual will always subordinate to the will of the Creator, just as in that what we just outlined as this Shiva, Ananda, Ikcha, Jnana, Kriya. So this clarity of understanding that will is required, knowing or knowledge of how, and the action taken. So whatever we do, whatever our likes, whatever we go about our daily life with whatever needs to be done, if it's helpful to assign it all to the absolute, to the divine, simply because it makes the load lighter, why not? Do just that. Delegate all that. And yet, whenever the push comes to the shove and you need to make a decision, you have to make that decision. And if you are dwelling on a status quo, knowing very well that you are incapable of making the decision, you can, of course, delegate that also to the divine power. But you will still be the one who will make that decision, you see? So chicken and egg story here. And you are the only one who can grok it. So I hope it becomes clearer now. It certainly does, trust me. It certainly does, and just becomes natural. We no longer dwell on this anymore. We could illustrate this, of course, with the samples and examples from the Bhagavad Gita, right? Which will tie both questions. The question that you just asked with the question that was asked before, right? Reconciliation of that fullness, right? Everything is okay. So what they left to do? We can bring this reminder of the what is action, what is inaction. Even wise are bewildered there, as the verse of the Bhagavad Gita goes. The wise knows that one does not act at all. And the wise also knows that there is a different kind of actions. There's action in inaction, and there is inaction in action. Wise, knowing that, remain unattached. These are great, profound reminders of the nature of the action, which is, of course, inevitably also linked to the will, because these actions cannot exist unless there is a will in the first place. So these reminders are profound reminders that when we act, we do not act at all. When we're not acting at all, this cannot be called complete inactivity. There is still another kind of action, as the verses of the Gita go.